because we don't want to keep our next guest on the line for too long. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He is Tom Anselmi, who joins us on what is undoubtedly, well, I would suspect the most difficult day of your tenure, certainly in that, but taking some time for us today, Tom.
Thanks for having me on, guys. And yeah, probably one of the tougher days in my career in this wacky industry that we're in. But it's never easy. And Damien talked to timing there, and the timing is never good to do this kind of stuff. The timing, even worse this year because a delayed season and the like, and a new ownership that didn't close, a new deal and a sale of the company didn't close until August. So, nothing is ever perfect in life, that is for sure. But, the timing clearly here is less than perfect. But, I really am a firm believer that, that once you make a decision, you need to act upon it, and because you can't fake it. So once we as an ownership group made that decision, we decided the best thing in the best interest of everybody was to do that.
All right. Let me throw out a couple of quick questions, and then I'll let Damien back in here on this. Number one, did you tell Brian Burke he'd been fired?
Myself and Larry Tannenbaum and Dale Lastman did.
Was Larry in Toronto?
He was until he flew to New York. He had to fly to New York right after, obviously, because we had to be represented at the Board of Governors meeting today. And, to speak to your other point, that's why there wasn't, a face of ownership there. I mean, this board, hires somebody like me to run this company for them and mind the store and stand up and be accountable for things like this. But, I think we've got a board that is very committed to winning and is not shy about standing up. And I can tell you, Larry would have been there and was there, made a point of being there when we talked to Brian, but also had to be there representing us in New York today, and that's why I stayed back.
Well, okay. I mean, we'll agree to disagree on that, and I mean, I understand your position in supporting the board for whom you work, but there are those of us who think that this is a time when a board member, at least some representative of the board specifically, notwithstanding your appearance here, which we appreciate, should be held accountable. So you and Larry Tannenbaum make the announcement to Burke
and Dale Lastman.
And Dale Lastman, sorry. Why was Brian Burke fired? As you were, I assume, were you in the room when the decision was made?
Yes, and I was part of making the decision, and it was unanimous amongst the group of us that, long term, this change was necessary, and it's a decision that evolved over a period of time, as decisions like this usually do, and it was a decision that was based on a number of different things,
such as Tom. Why was he fired?
Team performance was one of the factors, and I really spoke today a lot about coming to the conclusion that a new style of leadership and a new tone of leadership was required long term. And once you get to that point, you've made a decision, then it's only fair to everybody involved to get on with it and act upon it.
Is Dave Nonis an interim general manager? Just to clarify, or does he have a contract?
No, he's under contract, and he's a general manager of this hockey club, and he has all the authority to act on behalf of this hockey club. So
there's no interim tag here?
No.
What does Dave Nonis bring to this organization that, given his relationship with Brian Burke over in several organizations over many years, I referred to him earlier as a disciple of Brian Burke, and I don't think that's an inaccurate depiction of it. If the direction of this hockey club was unsatisfactory, what is it about Dave Nonis that you see that will change the direction of this ship?
Well, I think they, philosophically, they see the game the same way, and they build teams the same way. They believe in the same sort of basic blueprint of how you build a team and what it takes to be successful. But I think, Dave goes about it a much different way. They're very different people, and they have a very different voice behind them, and just a different way of doing things. I think one of Brian's legacies is going to be the building blocks he put in place, plus the great team of people he put in place that I mean, Dave had a lot of success in Vancouver, and there's no reason not to expect him to have that success in Toronto as well.
So you're saying you didn't like Brian Burke, not that you didn't like what Brian Burke did.
Bob, I was saying to people today, when you're talking about leadership and and tone and things like that, I mean, it's a pretty esoteric kind of conversation. And the relationship I was talking today about the relationship between a general manager and ownership it's a really unique kind of relationship. It's not a typical employer-employee kind of relationship. And there are a bunch of things that go into it. Results is one, and demeanor and approach to business is another, and style, and it's a whole lot of different things. And sometimes the net sum of those things works with one ownership group and doesn't work with another. And as we debated this over the last several months after the deal closed, and as we evaluated, the new group is evaluating the organization, its people, and came to the conclusion that probably wasn't going to work long term, and therefore this is the best thing to do now. It's the fairest thing to do now, and that's why we did it.
Tom, I get the sense you didn't think this was the right time. Did you put it to the board, say, guys, if you want to do this, but this is not the right time?
I wouldn't say it that way, Damien. When we, once we made the decision and it became a matter of when, not if, we debated a bunch of different options, and I pointed out the risks to the board of each of the times, and clearly we knew doing this now is what's the word I'm looking for?
Awkward?
Unexpected, awkward, difficult. They're potentially disruptive. I mean, all those kind of things. Clearly, I mean, typically general managers and coaches get fired at the end of a year or halfway through a bad year, and here we are at the start of a year that happens to be a delayed year, where at the start of a training camp is full of anticipation and excitement and what's to come, and we're going to grieve a friend for a day here and then get back to work. It's awkward timing. There's no doubt about it. But I really am a firm believer that once you make a decision on something, it's only right to act upon it.
Now, Bob and I would disagree, although we haven't talked about it. I don't think Dave Nonis is the same as Brian Burke, but we'll hash that out between he and I later. And I think Nonis is a pretty solid choice. That said, this is a prestigious job in hockey. You could have done a search and come up with somebody. I would say by next week you could have hired another person, gone through all the candidates available in the hockey world. Did you consider doing that, and why didn't you do that?
No, and for two reasons. Because I told the board, number one, we've got a very capable candidate person in-house in David and the team of people behind him. And secondly, practically it just wouldn't work. I mean, training camp's opening this week. Opening night is the 19th. There is all kinds of stuff in play right now, and all the preparation work that's been going on. So it just, practically speaking, it would have been impossible.
Dave Nonis had no clue this was coming.
No, not till this morning.
Had Dave Nonis at any point in time indicated to you or anybody on the board that he had a different thought process than Brian Burke with regard to any?
Anytime you've got a front office in any sport, I mean, all the people there see players differently. I mean, that's part of the art of the business. Scouts all see guys differently, that kind of thing. But no, I mean, we've got a team there that generally they're all rowing in the same direction. They all believe in the same type of philosophy of what it takes to win and how you build a team and the like. But no, there's nothing like that at all.
Would you say this was a personality conflict between Brian Burke and a member or members of the board?
Personality conflict wouldn't characterize it right. I think it's.
Good.
Well, you guys know me. I'm usually pretty honest. I mean, I think you're evaluating a person and a situation and a body of work and a whole set of circumstances, and it all adds up to yes or no. And at the end of the day, we have a group of owners who unanimously came to the conclusion that long term the answer was no, and so therefore the right answer now is let's deal with it.
I said to Bob, and I don't know if you heard that. I think in 24 years of covering this team, I've seen 9 general managers. There are actually maybe more than that, but anyways. And my thought that no one is given a long period of time, and maybe nobody can be Lou Lamoriello, but a long period of time. Do you imagine a GM will ever be given a lengthy period of time to sit down and build this team over 6, 7, 8 years, or are we always going to be in this cycle of 3?
I agree with you. I got a wonderful piece of advice from Gary Bettman a bunch of years ago, and I asked him. Gary, you've seen every team in every league and every sports organizations, and he didn't hesitate, and he said stability.
Yep.
And I agree with that, and it sort of goes to that, what I was talking about earlier about that, that youth relationship where the general manager, feels stable and therefore has the ability to take risks without consequences, and has a plan, and if he deviates from it, there aren't consequences. But at the same time, there's accountability and checks and balances, and all the sort of things that make up that great working relationship. And you know what? It's tough to find. I mean, 1 out of 30 teams every year. I'd really love to believe that we found it in Dave Nonis. I've known Dave personally for a number of years and watched him grow. And clearly Brian has had a lot to do with his growth, but Dave is very much his own man as well, and Dave very much, he is a different guy in a number of ways, and in how he does things, and I think Dave has a huge career here, and hope.
I'm having a real hard time, Tom, in seeing that. I'm seeing the point of difference. If you didn't talk to Dave Nonis, if Dave Nonis didn't have a heads up, if there was no interview process, if you didn't know where specifically he was going to go with this thing.
I've been here for 4.5 years, so we've been observing him and watching him, and he's been an integral part of the team and an integral part of building what has been built so far. So we know what we got there. I mean,
but what's confrontational, who does not seek publicity, who does not say things that he may or the organization may wish he didn't say, all the things that Brian Burke has been. So I don't see.
Oh, Bob, but you haven't spent a lot of. Let me jump in, and Tom, you feel free, but you have
Bail
not
me
spent.
out of here, Cox.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, I'm not going to say you don't need me to save you, but I mean, you've not known us have worked well over the years. Is that they are very different, and Nonis is not a yes man, and there are a lot of times where they don't think anywhere close on hockey issues. At the end of the day, Nonis has to be the team guy, and for 4 years, Dave Nonis had a different opinion. But he's there to support and offer a different opinion. So to simply say he's the same as Brian Burke, you may not want Dave Nonis to get the job. That's fair. You may think the Leafs did the wrong thing, but they're not the same guy. They are not even close to the same guy.
Well, I would assume that's the case. I would hope that's the case, because if he is the same guy, this was an exercise for a reason that is heretofore inexplicable.
Oh yeah, I mean, and look, and Tom,
other than Brian Burke's personality, which I'm sure ruffled the feathers of members of the board. And I mean, there's a story about Brian Burke using profanity in a board meeting and being called out by one of the board members and told that we don't use profanity in here.
Yeah, you know what?
Now,
and
is that a big deal?
But here's my
Maybe
problem.
not.
And you've heard stories. Tom's heard stories. I've heard stories. I have trouble with stories because half the time the stories turn out to not to be true. But I get what you're saying. I think Tom would acknowledge the one thing. I think you'd agree, Tom, is Brian is a polarizing figure. Either you love him or you don't like him.
Well, and that could change every 5 minutes, right, Tom?
No.
Well, Brian's he is that unique combination, and there's no question about it. He's he is black and white and all those sort of things, and but I have to agree with Damien. I mean Dave
well, of course.
is not only he's a hell of a good hockey man, but he is also very much he is different in a lot of ways, and he's been successful, and we just have every confidence in he and the team of people behind him. I really believe that.
Well, we hope you're right, and on behalf of Maple Leaf fans. It was
You're now speaking on behalf of Maple Leaf fans. Did you know he does that, Tom?
Well,
this is new.
I'm surrounded by them. I can't help but reference them.